Have you ever wondered if there are messages that go beyond what we can see, hear, or touch? Messages so impactful that they can alter the course of history. Today, you are about to explore one of these messages. This is not just any story. Pope Francis has unveiled a profound and unsettling vision of the Virgin Mary, a revelation that brings both a cautionary tale and a promise of hope. This message is not limited to religious leaders or scholars, it is meant for you. Before we proceed, I invite you to join this journey of reflection and transformation. Consider subscribing to this channel, where we share insights that inspire and guide. Become part of a growing community of faith. If you have a prayer request, feel free to write it in the comments. Who or what have you been praying for recently? Your family, friends, perhaps a job, healing, or a greater purpose. Also, mention where you are from. It's uplifting to see how this message connects hearts and intentions across the globe. How are you feeling today? Is there something weighing on your heart or mind? Know that I am here to listen and offer support. Share your struggles in the comments so others can pray for you too. Together, we can find comfort and peace. You are never alone, I am here by your side. What makes this message so significant? What Pope Francis shared is no ordinary reflection. It's an intense vision filled with symbolism. In his account, Mary appeared with a heart encircled by thorns, representing the suffering caused by humanity's sins and indifference. This powerful image urges deep reflection. Yet, the message does not end there. Mary's words carry an urgent call that transcends cultural, religious, and spiritual boundaries. Why is it crucial to listen to the end? Because the choices you make after hearing this message can influence the future. Pope Francis's plea is not just a request, it's a cry in the face of the crises we face today. Natural disasters, wars, polarization, and weakened spirituality signal that something profound is amiss, urging us to act before it's too late. Mary's call today is as urgent as it was in Fatima over a century ago. Then, 3 humble children, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, received messages during a time of war and moral crisis. Her warnings included visions of hell, predictions of World War II, and the spread of communism. Mary also called for the consecration of Russia to her Immaculate Heart to avert greater tragedies. Sadly, not all her warnings were heeded in time, and the consequences were severe. Now, over 100 years later, Pope Francis has revealed a new message from Mary, one deeply tied to the challenges we face today. Increasingly destructive natural disasters, ongoing wars, political division, and moral decay are not mere coincidences. They are signs previously foretold, returning with renewed urgency. Why does Mary choose specific moments to appear? Her messages come during times of great need. Just as in Fatima, her call today is one of hope, but it requires prayer, repentance, and immediate action. Pope Francis, recognizing the critical nature of this vision, has shared it with the world because he believes time is running out. The global crises we face are not only external, they reflect a deeper spiritual disconnection, with significant consequences for society and the environment. The Virgin Mary's message is not just for humanity as a whole, it is for you. She does not speak to future generations, but to those hearing this warning now. In her vision, Mary appeared with a sorrowful expression and a crown surrounded by thorns, symbolizing the pain caused by sin and indifference. This image serves as a poignant reminder that our choices matter. Every decision we make, both individually and collectively, shapes the future. This is the essence of her message. Mary's message is a call for transformation. She does not come only to warn us about the danger, but to show us that there is still time to change. However, this opportunity is limited. In her previous appearances, such as in Fatima, her warnings were ignored by many, the result of which was the destruction and suffering we now face. Now we face a similar moment. But the question is, will we repeat the mistakes of the past? The historical and spiritual context of this message teaches us that divine warnings are not inevitable. Just as the prophecies of Fatima could have prevented tragedies if they had been fully heeded, Francis' message is a call to action. To act before it's too late. Every prayer, every gesture of repentance, every step towards faith can change the course of history. So what will you do? The warning is here. History has shown us the consequences of ignoring these signs. But now more than ever it's your chance to make a difference, because remember, this message is not for someone else. It's for you. Look around you. The world seems to be in constant imbalance. Every day we are bombarded with news of natural disasters, armed conflicts, political tensions, and a growing moral decay. You feel this feeling that we are living in times of chaos. Pope Francis also perceives this reality, and based on the revelation of the Virgin Mary, he warns us that these crises are not mere coincidences. They are connected to something much greater, a spiritual separation that is causing humanity to reach a breaking point. Natural disasters that were once rare are now frequent and devastating. Hurricanes, stronger, uncontrollable floods, and sudden earthquakes. And while nature seems to be crying out for help, we as a society are more divided than ever, with conflicts between nations, civil wars, and a political polarization that destroys families, friendships, and communities. Add to this a silent, but deep-rooted spiritual crisis where values such as empathy, solidarity, and faith are being replaced by selfishness, materialism, and indifference. But what does all this mean according to the vision revealed to Pope Francis? These crises are not just isolated events. They are symptoms of something much deeper, humanity's separation from God. Mary, in her message, she made a direct call to repentance and prayer as the only way to reverse this destructive cycle. She did not come to condemn us, but to warn us that without a genuine change of heart, the consequences will be inevitable. Francis described the moment we are living in as a turning point of inflection, and he is right. With every decision we make, individually or collectively, we are shaping the future. The path we choose now will determine whether we face destruction or renewal. Think about it, we are facing choices that can change the destiny of our lives and even of humanity. Do you feel that something needs to change? If so, you know you are not alone. Mary's message also connects us to an uncomfortable truth. Many of us prefer to ignore the signs around us. We are quick to find superficial solutions to deep problems, distracting ourselves with the day-to-day while pressing spiritual issues are left aside. But Mary, with her infinite compassion, invites us to stop and reflect. She points out that there is still hope, but time is running out. The challenges we face are not only global, but also deeply personal. Who among us does not bear the weight of daily pressures? Who does not face internal struggles, doubts, fears, or regrets? Just as the world is in crisis, many of us are too. And here is the beauty of Mary's message. She reminds us that no matter how lost we are, there is always a way back, a chance to start over. Mary had also revealed something that Francis urgently highlighted. It is not enough to simply observe the crises around us. We need to act. We need to make concrete changes in our lives. We need to begin rebuilding our connection with the sacred and rediscover the transformative power of faith. This starts with small steps, such as prayer, forgiveness, and acts of kindness that together can transform the world. Imagine for a moment the world where each one of us takes responsibility for responding to this call, where prayers are not just words, but bridges that connect hearts, where repentance is more than a feeling of guilt, but a commitment to change. This is the world that Mary invites us to build, and this construction begins now. The choice is in our hands. Will we ignore the signs and continue on our current path, or will we heed the call that Mary makes to us? History is full of examples of what happens when divine warnings are ignored, but today you have a chance to write a chapter different. The decision is yours, and remember, the time to act is now. Imagine the moment when Pope Francis, a figure of serenity and compassion, found himself faced with such an impactful revelation that he described it as the darkest he had ever witnessed. It was not only a common vision, it was a message loaded with spiritual weight and divine urgency coming directly from the Virgin Mary. What he saw and felt was so overwhelming that there was no way to keep it to himself. He needed to share it with the world. The vision was clearer. Mary appeared before him, deeply saddened, with the heart surrounded by thorns, an image that symbolizes sins and indifference of humanity. Her expression was not one of condemnation, but of a maternal sadness that carried a plea to return to God before it is too late. But at the same time, this vision brought disturbing images of disasters, wars, and spiritual crises that reflect the current state of the world the Pope described. The feeling was like a crushing weight on his soul, as if every thorn in that heart was piercing his too. He knew that that message was not just a reflection, but an urgent warning, a call for all of us. And the most impressive thing is that that message was not to future generations, or to religious leaders, but to each of us individually. This message is for you who are listening now, he said. Mary did not come just to show the consequences of our actions, but to give us an opportunity. In her infinite compassion, she revealed that there is still time to change the course of history, but that window is closing fast, and according to Francis, ignoring this warning is a risk that humanity cannot take in the vision. The Virgin Mary also brought a direct message: the distancing from God is leading us to a cycle of self-destruction. She pointed out the connection between global conflicts, natural disasters, and the loss of spiritual values. Each event is a reflection of how we have distanced ourselves from faith and the divine essence. Francis warned that this vision is a call to immediate action, as time for repentance and transformation is running out. Furthermore, he revealed that Mary presented the rosary as a powerful spiritual weapon capable of dispelling darkness that grows in the world. Francis described this prayer as a shield against the forces of evil and a path to divine protection. The message is clear: we need to reconnect with God through the prayer of penance and genuine faith. The Pope also spoke about the symbolism of current crises. He mentioned how humanity's indifference to the suffering of others and excessive greed are creating a shadow that covers the world. This darkness is not only external but spiritual, corroding our souls and destroying the bonds that unite us as a society. Mary showed that this shadow can only be dispelled through the light of faith and unity. Another part of the vision Francis shared was that of crowds walking towards a growing darkness. He described this scene as a reflection of the choices we are making as we prioritize the material over the spiritual. We are moving further and further away from the light divine, but Mary, as a loving mother, also brought hope. She showed that even in the midst of darkness, there is a way out for those who choose to turn to God. Francis highlighted that the vision was not only a warning but also a promise. Mary assured that with repentance and prayer, especially through the rosary, we can avoid the most devastating consequences and pave the way for a future of peace and reconciliation. However, the choice is ours, and the time is now. This vision is not something to be ignored. It is a personal call, an invitation to reflect on our lives, our priorities, and our faith. What will you do with this message? Will you continue on the current path, or will you heed the Virgin Mary's call to return to the light? The message of the Virgin Mary conveyed by Pope Francis was not just a warning, it was a direct call to action. It was not about something symbolic or metaphorical, but about a clear instruction. The world is at a critical point, and it is up to each of us to decide what to do from now on. What will you do with this message? Will you continue living as if nothing were happening? Or will you accept Mary's invitation to transform your life, and perhaps the future of humanity? Mary emphasized that the solution to the spiritual crisis we face is not in great gestures of power, but in simple and powerful actions: prayer, repentance, and a genuine commitment to faith. She reminds us that change begins with each one of us, and there is no time to waste. Pope Francis highlighted the crucial role of prayer, especially the rosary, which Mary described as a powerful spiritual weapon. Each bead of the rosary is like a drop of light in the midst of the darkness that surrounds the world, but this prayer should not be done automatically or superficially. It must come from the heart, with true intention and devotion. Pray the rosary daily, as Mary is not just an act of faith, but a commitment to resistance against the forces that threaten to destroy our connection with the divine. Another crucial point is repentance. Mary showed that distance from God is at the heart of the crises we face. It is not enough to acknowledge our mistakes. They need to be transformed into opportunities for change. Repentance is more than an emotion. It is a decision to decide to return to God, to abandon that which separates us from faith, and to adopt a life that reflects the spiritual values that we have lost along the way. But what this calling in practice means is looking at your own life and asking, what am I doing to contribute to the brighter world? What habits, thoughts, or actions take me away from the faith? This call is not just collective, it is personal. Every choice you make, from forgiving someone who hurt you to dedicating a few minutes of your day to prayer, is a way of responding to Mary's request. Francisco also highlighted the importance of concrete acts of charity and spiritual reconnection. It is not just about praying, it is about living faith in every aspect of life, helping those in need, practicing generosity, and spreading love and compassion. All of this is part of the calling. Spirituality cannot be just an idea. It must be lived in daily actions that illuminate the world around us. A detail that makes this call so urgent is the promise that Mary made. There is still time, but it is running out. Just as in the prophecies of Fatima, the consequences of moving away from God are not inevitable, but depend on our response. Now she has shown us that the destiny of humanity is not set in stone. It can be shaped by our choices and every prayer. Every act of repentance, every gesture of kindness, is a brick in the construction of a future of hope. But here the question is, are you willing to answer this call? It is easy to watch a video like this, get emotional with the message, and go on with life without making real changes. But Mary is not asking for a passing feeling. She is asking for commitment. A genuine transformation starts with simple but consistent steps and starts now. Pope Francis begged, "Please listen before it is too late." He saw in his vision the consequences of ignoring this call. Multitudes walking towards a growing darkness. A world crumbling under the weight of its own indifference. But he also saw the light that emerges when people decide to turn to God. This light is the hope. It is within reach of all who choose to respond to Mary's call. The decision is yours. What you will do from this moment on. It is not too late to start, but there is no more time to lose. The world needs you. Your prayer, your faith, your action can be the difference. To fully understand the weight of the message revealed by Francisco, we need to look back at those that continue to echo. Even after more than a century, in 1917, when the Virgin Mary appeared to the three shepherd children, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, her words were loaded with warnings and promises. Today these messages connect directly with Francis' recent vision, bringing a renewed sense of urgency at that time. Mary showed the children a series of stunning images. Hell, devastating wars and religious persecutions. She made a clear request for prayer, repentance, and the consecration of Russia to her Immaculate Heart. These actions, according to Mary, could avoid the tragedies that would come. However, not all of her instructions were followed promptly, and the world faced exactly what she had predicted: the Second World War, the advance of, and a period of great suffering. Now the message revealed by Pope Francis brings to light a similar pattern. He described how Mary showed in her vision images of destruction, pain, and spiritual darkness, but also, just as in Fatima, she offered a way out. The call to pray the rosary and turn to God is not just an act of devotion. It is an urgent action to interrupt a cycle of self-destruction. The similarities between the prophecies of Fatima and Francis' vision are striking. In both, Mary highlights the connection between global events and humanity's loss of faith in wars. Natural disasters and social crises are seen not only as problems political or environmental, but as symptoms of a spiritual distancing. In Fatima, she warned that without genuine change, the world would face tragedies. Today the Pope reinforces this message, warning that we are at a critical point in history. Another common element is the central role of prayer in Fatima. Mary asked the faithful to pray the rosary daily, as a way of protection and intercession. Francis, in his vision, also emphasized this practice, describing the rosary as a spiritual weapon against the forces of evil that threaten the world. He explained that each bead of the rosary is like a brick, building a fortress of faith and light in the midst of darkness. Growing. But what makes this message so urgent today is the crises of the 20th century, such as World War II and the rise of materialistic ideologies, which are mirrored by the crises of the present conflicts between nations. Political polarization, moral decay, and natural disasters seem to be intensifying. Maria through Francis reminds us that the pattern repeats itself, but that we have the power to interrupt this trajectory. The third secret of Fatima, kept a mystery for decades, depicted a scene of immense suffering and persecution for the Church, but it also carried a message of hope. It showed that even amidst destruction, there was a promise of redemption for those who remained faithful. This theme is echoed in Pope Francis's vision, which calls for urgent action to avoid the darkest scenarios revealed by Mary. Her messages have never been about condemnation, they are rooted in love and care. Mary does not seek to instill fear, but to awaken humanity, inviting reflection on our choices and a return to the path of light. As in Fatima, her call is not only directed at leaders or large movements, but at individuals. Each person is asked to respond through prayer, repentance, and acts of faith. The question remains, will we recognize the parallels between the past and present, or repeat the mistakes of those who doubted or ignored her warnings in Fatima? The consequences then were devastating. Today, the message is clear: there is still time, but it is running short. Mary has given us the tools: prayer, the rosary, repentance, and charity. Pope Francis urges us to wield these spiritual instruments before it is too late. By learning from the past, we have the power to shape a different future, but it demands immediate action. Are you ready to heed this call? The fate of humanity may depend on it. Among the most startling aspects of Pope Francis's revelation was his mention of the silent disease. Unlike disasters or wars that erupt explosively, this threat operates insidiously, infiltrating daily life, hearts, and minds without obvious signs. Pope Francis described it as a profound danger to both body and soul. But what is this silent disease? It represents a gradual distancing from God, a slow process that begins with small choices, neglecting prayer, prioritizing materialism, and becoming indifferent to others' suffering. Over time, this disease corrodes the spirit, replacing spiritual values with selfishness, ambition, and superficiality. In today's world, this spiritual illness is more visible than ever. The relentless pursuit of material success, fleeting pleasures, and social recognition has overshadowed spiritual reflection and purpose. We are hyper-connected to devices yet disconnected from what truly matters. This silent disease is deceptive. It spreads slowly, creating a false sense of normalcy. The result is a society increasingly disconnected from faith, empathy, and the values that sustain a fulfilling life. Mary's message highlights that this silent disease lies at the core of today's crises. It is not just an individual issue, but a collective one, eroding unity and prioritizing self-interest over common good. This moral decline impacts everything, from family structures to global relations. Pope Francis warned that spiritual indifference is one of the most alarming aspects of this disease. Many do not openly reject faith, but simply let it fade away, creating a void filled by consumerism, individualism, and an insatiable need for social validation. Mary's vision offers a remedy, a return to spiritual practices that combat this darkness. The rosary, described as a spiritual weapon, strengthens the soul and protects it against indifference. Every prayer reconnects us to the divine, reinforcing faith and guarding against spiritual decay. Repentance and sacraments, such as confession, are not mere rituals but essential steps to purify the heart and restore connection with God. Charity reminds us of our role in a larger community, healing our souls as we serve others. What makes this disease particularly dangerous is its subtlety. Many fail to recognize the signs: the emptiness after material success, loneliness despite virtual connections, and the lack of purpose even in seemingly successful lives. These are symptoms of a soul disconnected from its essence. Mary warns us that there is still time to address this illness, but the cure requires commitment. Prayer, reflection, forgiveness, and compassion are the first steps. It is not easy, but it is essential. Ignoring this silent disease allows it to continue eroding both individual lives and society as a whole. The core of Mary's message is not just a warning, but an invitation to look within, recognize the symptoms of this spiritual disease, and embrace the remedy she offers. The choice is ours, to continue ignoring the signs, or to take the steps that can transform our lives. What is at stake is not only our immediate well-being, but also the destiny of our souls and the future of the world. Despite the gravity of Mary's revelations, there remains a profound promise of hope. Even amid the darkness and suffering shown to Pope Francis, Mary reminds us that a path of light is still available. Most importantly, this path is within everyone's reach. But this hope depends on the choices we make now, while time remains. Are you ready to take the first step? Mary's message is clear: the future is shaped by our choices. The dark consequences she revealed, wars, disasters, and unprecedented crises, are not inevitable. They reflect humanity's distancing from God, but can be avoided through faith, repentance, and action. Just as in the prophecies of Fatima, the Virgin Mary offers an alternative, a path toward peace and reconciliation. Her promise is simple yet profound. With the power of prayer, especially the rosary, we have the ability to change the course of history. Pope Francis shared that Mary described the rosary as a light that dispels darkness, where each prayer becomes a spark illuminating the world. Imagine millions united in prayer, creating a chain of light strong enough to pierce even the deepest shadows. But prayer alone is not enough. Mary calls us to take concrete action. Her promise of hope requires genuine commitment to transformation, living values that promote peace, compassion, and solidarity. Every small act matters, from helping a neighbor to teaching future generations the power of love and faith. Another critical part of Mary's promise is the healing power of repentance. No matter how far we feel from God or how heavy our burdens, she assures us there is always a way back. Confession, as Pope Francis emphasized, is not just a ritual, but an act of liberation that allows divine grace to renew our hearts. Mary also highlighted the importance of spiritual unity in overcoming the challenges of our time. She reminds us that every act of prayer, every effort to seek the good of others, contributes to a collective transformation. Hope is not passive, it requires effort, perseverance, and unwavering faith. Her promise is not a magical solution, but an invitation to embark on a spiritual journey guided by trust in God. This journey begins with a simple question: are you ready to take the first step? Mary made it clear that now is the time to act. While darkness seems to spread, light can grow just as quickly if we choose to nurture it. Actions like prayer, repentance, and acts of kindness might seem small, but they have the power to shape a future of peace. This promise of hope is the heart of Mary's message. She comes not to condemn, but to awaken, her sadness reflecting the love of a mother longing to see her children thrive, even amid great challenges. The question now is, what will you do with this hope? Will you let it pass as just another message, or will you allow it to transform your life? This is your chance to become part of a chain of light, building a better future for yourself, your loved ones, and the world. The promise is before you, but your response is what will make it a reality. Time may be short, but hope is boundless. Don't wait for tomorrow when you can begin today. As we conclude this powerful message, remember this is not an end, it is the beginning of something greater. Mary's words, shared by Pope Francis, present us with a decisive choice. It's not just about hearing the message, but acting on it. Each of us plays a crucial role in this story, and every small decision matters. Prayer, especially the rosary, is a spiritual tool to dispel darkness. Repentance reconnects us with God, and acts of charity spread light and hope to the world. What weighs on your heart today? What choices or habits have distanced you from the peace Mary promises? Now is the time to surrender those burdens and trust in divine strength to guide your steps. Mary reminds us that we are never alone. God's light is within reach, but we must seek it. Share this message with others, family, friends, and anyone who may need to hear it. Imagine the impact of millions united in prayer, faith, and hope. This current of light can change everything. Remember, Mary's call is an invitation filled with love. It is not meant to scare but to awaken. Every choice we make matters. Don't wait for the perfect moment. The time to act is now. Take with you this truth: light always triumphs over darkness, and that light begins with you. Pray, reflect, and choose change. You are not alone on this journey. Mary is with you, interceding and guiding us toward a future of hope. The decision is in your hands. Choose the light, choose hope, and be part of this transformation.